This is a live look at North Minneapolis. For the second time in a week, a shooting by a federal agent is leading to unrest in the city. We've been watching the situation unfold here near 24th and Lyndale. We have team coverage as we're learning more as the evening progresses. We want to get right to senior investigative reporter Jennifer Merrily. What do we know at this point, Jen?
Well, Frank, at this hour, we're told one person and one ICE officer is being treated at the hospital. We're told that ICE officer opened fire, shooting a man in the leg after being attacked with a shovel. Let's back up and let's get to how all of this started. We know this all unfolded around just before 7 o'clock tonight, starting with a traffic stop in North Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security says they were stopping someone from Venezuela who's undocumented. They say the person fled the scene and then crashed into a parked car, then ran. Now, according to DHS, when officers caught up with the person, there was a struggle. They say two people came out of an apartment and attacked the officer with a shovel and broom handle. They say then the original person started attacking the officer with a shovel or broom. Now, DHS says the officer feared for his life and fired shots to defend himself. The person that they had tried to pull over for that traffic stop was struck in the leg. Now, Homeland Security says all three people barricaded themselves inside an apartment. We know two are now in custody. The original person, the undocumented Venezuelan they say they tried to pull over, is in the hospital. So is the officer. And I do want to share that we have been talking with sources all night. We are told by them this did start with a traffic stop, with things escalating from there. They relayed to me about shovels being used. We expect to learn more from police in the next 15 minutes. And Frank, I'll be heading there to ask questions.
Okay, good. Question for you. Do we know, is there a relationship between the Venezuelan national and the two people who are using the broom and the shovel, or were they just random people who wanted to come to his aid for some reason?
Frank, it's unclear what that relationship is at this hour, but that is one of the questions we will be asking.
All right, thank you. Let's get right to Ashley Graham. She's at the scene in North Minneapolis near 24th and Lyndale. Ashley, what are you seeing? We've seen a lot of people up there.
Yeah, lots of people. This has continued to grow over the past couple of hours, and we actually had to move down about a block or so as people start to clear down. We were in the intersection down there when federal agents rushed this intersection. I think we have some video to show you guys right now. Of course, we've seen these clashes between protesters and agents. We've seen protesters fire what appears to be fireworks at agents, then agents deploying what seems to be tear gas, asking people to get out of the way. We actually had to run through some of that tear gas to get out of the way ourselves. So we see protesters expressing their opposition to ICE being in the city, hearing lots of different expletives and graphic signs here as well. Again, we're just about a block from where we see these folks protesting. You might be able to hear some of those whistles in the background. Those whistles have really become synonymous with protesters letting people know that immigration agents are in the area. So we continue to see folks expressing their opposition here. We also see these federal agents trying to clear the area. Frank, we'll let you know as we keep hearing what's happening here.
Here's video from the WCCO chopper as we follow breaking news in Minneapolis. This is near 24th and Lyndale on the city's north side. The automobile you saw was the one a man was driving when ICE agents tried to pull him over. He ran from that vehicle. Homeland Security says an ICE agent then shot the Venezuelan national in the leg after he and two other men started to attack that agent with shovels. Both the Venezuelan national and the agent are in the hospital. Ashley Graham's been at the scene for the past couple hours. It started around 7. Ashley, I asked you earlier, you couldn't hear me. Are there state troopers, Minneapolis police, or other law enforcement out there trying to clear that, or is this like an all ICE operation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I believe we have seen Minneapolis police and state troopers out here in the time that we've been here, although the people that I've seen clearing the crowd appear to be federal agents. We're actually just one block down from where the crime scene tape is up and this main group of protesters is. And we decided to walk down from there because there was a time when federal agents came in to really clear that intersection. deployed what appeared to be tear gas and flashbangs, and we had to get out of there along with the group that had been forming there as well. Now that group has started to reform down there at that intersection. I believe it's 24th and Lyndale, just down from where this investigation is happening, and it's hard to describe how tense the emotions are out here. A lot of people extremely angry, expressing their opposition to ICE being in this city, although there's a lot of other people as well who are driving by asking, hey, what's going on? You know, we hear those whistles that we've started to hear a lot of protesters bring when they see these ICE agents doing their operations. So a lot of people trying to wrap their head around what's happening here. A lot of people very angry, expressing their opposition. Some of those people, even what we've seen, kicking federal cars, surrounding federal cars as they come and go from this investigation site. So again, really tense emotions out here. A lot of people extremely angry and expressing their opposition to ICE being in this city, something that we've heard from Mayor Fry as well as from the governor, both of them saying they don't want ICE here, but then asking people to be peaceful as well. So again, we've seen these clashes between protesters and federal agents just about at 24th and Lyndale, not far from where this investigation is happening, and we'll continue to keep you guys updated what we see out here tonight.
When people hear, hey, stop and say, hey, what's going on, is any part of the narrative an ICE agent was attacked by a couple of people with a shovel and a broomstick, or is that just so far removed from the conversation it's more just about their presence? I'm just wondering if the circumstance changes this as opposed to the shooting that we saw a week ago.
Yeah, a lot of people just really focused on the presence of those federal officers here, as well as talking about what happened 1 week ago with Renee Good in South Minneapolis. So a lot of people focused on those elements, and I haven't heard many people talking about what DHS has said that has happened.
Okay. Ashley, thanks. Stay safe. We'll check with you later.
Yeah, Frank, from what I can see, so this is the original, I believe, 24th and Lyndale that we were at when we first got here. There was tape up. There was one Minneapolis police squad car as well as some federal agents that we could see. But now these protesters have really started to push in. And I believe my photographer might be able to get a little bit closer to give you guys a vantage point of what we can see in there. It appeared to be State Patrol seemingly holding a line there for quite some time. But now we're starting to see some smoke in the air. It's possible that this could be tear gas of some sort. They've been using that to break up the crowds out here. We've also seen some flashbangs, but on the other side of this, we've seen protesters appear to be firing firecrackers at these agents, at this law enforcement, surrounding different cars at different times as these agents have tried to come in and out of the area. Sorry, I'm pausing for a second to see if they might be making an announcement of some kind. Looks like these agents might be moving in some way, interacting with protesters here. So yeah, this is a very fluid situation out here. What I can tell you is that it's very high emotions. People are very angry. A lot of people expressing their desire for ICE to leave the city in the same way that the mayor and the governor have been. But out here, we've definitely seen that culminate in clashes between these protesters, federal agents, and State Patrol at times. Frank?
Ashley, I know it's hard to tell. I saw 26th Avenue. I know it was over at 24th and spreading. Has this crowd in the course of the last hour or two gotten bigger, smaller? Can you tell? I mean, I know it covers several blocks.
Yeah, at times we've seen these protesters really scatter and have to move out of the way because we've seen these different, they're trying to break up the crowds at this point, and then people kind of come back together. So we've seen folks on all sides of where this is blocked off, but at this time we see a pretty strong crowd hanging out here tonight.
And have you heard any kind of like formal order to disperse or? You know, a lot of times when the police do that, they'll line up arm in arm and they'll give the formal order and then they'll kind of move forward. That looks a lot more chaotic to me.
It feels a little bit more chaotic. I mean, I've been out to the Whipple building this week and where we've seen, those protesters in a line as well as federal officers on the other side. And very clearly when I was at the Whipple building, we would hear that order to stop, getting in the way of traffic, to move back. And then you see those federal agents move forward. When I was in this intersection here and federal agents came to clear the intersection, I didn't hear any type of dispersal order before those what appeared to be tear gas started rolling out, as well as some flashbangs flashbangs and that we had to get out of the area ourselves. So it seems a little bit different than what we've seen earlier this week out at the federal building.
I've seen plenty of screaming and yelling and clashes, but I haven't seen anyone arrested or detained in any of the video that I've seen this evening. Have you witnessed any of that?
No, I haven't seen anybody detained myself, and we've been trying to ask around, but at this point we haven't heard about any arrests that have been made, just seeming these federal agents trying to clear the area of protesters at times. And now it appears that State Patrol might be here working on that as well.
I know, too, that I heard one woman say she heard about this through Facebook Live. I know there's all kinds of things on Twitter as well. Are you hearing people rallying or seeing them in any kind of way trying to get even more people down there? You know, at the same time, our U.S. Senator, Senior Senator Amy Klobuchar has told people not to go down there. But I know it's an emotional issue.
Right. It is clearly an emotional people. We've seen people very angry. We've also seen a lot of people, on social media telling people about what's going on here. Other people.
I'm going to hold you up, Ashley. We want to get to the mayor and police chief.
Second in a week. The chief will be able to provide some details on the limited amount that we know thus far, and then I will provide some comments thereafter. Chief.
My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIANO''HARA. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. At 6:51 p.m., Minneapolis Police received a 911 call reporting a shooting on the 600 block of 24 Avenue North. Preliminary information indicates that there was a struggle with a federal agent in front of the resident. During the struggle, the federal agent discharged his weapon, striking one adult male. The adult male then retreated inside of the residence, where he remained inside and refused to come out. Eventually, federal agents made entry into the residence, and the individual was brought to an ambulance where he has been transported to the hospital. Minneapolis police have secured the crime scene around the location, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, as well as the FBI, are on the scene processing the evidence. There's a crowd gathered in the area, and we have called for mutual aid from the Minnesota State Patrol and Hennepin County Sheriff. The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed. Police are attempting to disperse this unlawful assembly at this time. I urge anyone that is at the scene to leave immediately. This is already a very tense situation, and we do not need this to escalate any further. I have faith that the investigators that are involved will follow every lead in this case and ensure it is completed to its logical conclusion.
There's still a lot that we don't know at this time, but what I can tell you for certain is that this is not sustainable. This is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in. And at the same time, we are trying to find a way forward to keep people safe, to protect our neighbors, to maintain order. And we're in a position right now where we have residents that are asking the very limited number of police officers that we have to fight ICE agents on the street, to stand by their neighbors. We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. Why are we put in this position? We're put in this position because we have approximately 600 police officers in Minneapolis, far fewer that are able to work at any given time. And there are approximately 3,000 ICE agents in the area. 3,000. The 600 police officers that we have are charged on any given day with investigating crime, stopping homicides from taking place, preventing carjackings. That's the work of a police officer in a city. Meanwhile, we have ICE agents throughout our city and throughout our state who, along with Border Control, are creating chaos. This is not the path that we should be on right now in America. Thankfully, there's another path. And I want to talk to everybody who's out there, even people who aren't living in Minneapolis right now. Maybe you just put your kids to bed. Maybe you're cleaning up the dishes. I'm sure you love your family. There's no doubt in my mind that you love your town. Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare. This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. So let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos. And I have seen thousands of people throughout our city peacefully protesting. For those that have peacefully protested, I applaud you. For those that are taking the bait, you are not helping, and you are not helping the undocumented immigrants in our city. You are not helping the people that call this place home. ICE can leave, and this massive deployment can come to an end. We have filed litigation to hopefully make it so, and at the same time, I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the second shooting that we've had in a week. People are scared. The atmosphere is tense. But again, there is another option. We can stop going down this route together. We'll open it to any questions.
I just wanted to see if you might be able to clear out some of the rumors that are circulating on social media that a pregnant woman and possibly a 12-year-old boy were involved in this. Is that true or not true at all?
So there were reports initially that there was more than one person shot. That is not true. There is one person that's been shot. It is a non-life-threatening injury, and they have been transported to the hospital. The remainder of the residents has been cleared. We did have one call of, I believe, a woman having an anxiety attack in the basement of the same residence, the same building. But to my understanding, no one else has been transported to the hospital.
And no children involved in this?
To my understanding, no.
DHS has said that 2 other people came out of an apartment and started attacking the officer with shovels, and that the original person that they were looking for also did that. What has your investigation told you so far?
So the question was that people had come out of the residence and attacked federal law enforcement with shovels. The understanding that we have at this time is that this incident began on 94. The individual drove towards the residence, had some sort of accident outside the residence, ran towards the house, and got into a struggle with federal law enforcement. I believe there's a broom and like a snow shovel that's on the scene. And yes, I have heard information that that some individual, at least one person, may have assaulted federal law enforcement. Yes. I am not aware if that's the same person who was shot or if that's someone else.
Will MPD be doing its own investigation of what happened?
The question was, will MPD be doing an investigation of what happened? I requested the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Criminal Apprehension to respond, and they are on scene.
And you were saying that there was unlawful protesting that happened. Could you be a little bit more specific?
The question was about unlawful protesting. It has absolutely become an unlawful assembly. There are individuals throwing fireworks at police officers, individuals throwing ice, rocks, other projectiles at police officers. It is well past the line, and people need to leave.
What kind of communication, if any, of you had with federal law enforcement tonight?
The question was communication with federal law enforcement tonight. That communication was all on the scene. It was primarily related to trying to ensure that we were getting medical aid because we had a report of a shooting, and then also to try and ensure that we could maintain the integrity of the crime scene so that there could be an investigation into what occurred.
Do you know what the condition of the person shot is? And we're also told that Agent was injured and taken to the hospital. Do you have any updates on either condition?
I have no updates on either condition. It's my understanding that this is a non-life-threatening gunshot wound.
Can you talk about anything you know about that initial stop that started on 94, that initial chase, if you will, and anything you know about the person that they were following?
So I know nothing about the person that they were following. And then the rest of the question was about the initial chase. It's my understanding that we have some other 911 call indicating that someone from the house was calling, saying that the person in the car was running from ICE. I was driving towards the residence. That's my understanding.
Could Mayor Fry respond to criticism that local officials are contributing to rising rhetoric, and that's part of the reason why we're perceived as protesters leaving?
What rhetoric? So the question was, can I respond to rhetoric? What rhetoric?
Just says that there's rhetoric from local officials that they say has just kind of taken up the temperature of everything that's going on in Minneapolis.
So the question was, there has been the accusation that local officials have perhaps taken up the temperature in Minneapolis. First, I'll say, show me a single place where I have encouraged anything other than peace. Show me a single place where we have encouraged violence. I have said from the get-go to people in Minneapolis, do not take the bait. We are better than that. I have encouraged peaceful protest, and I'll say it again, I am inspired by the tens of thousands of people who have in fact peacefully protested and fairly documented with transparency what is taking place. That is allowed in any city in the country. And I have made it clear that to the extent people are going beyond that, and those protests are not peaceful, and the violence that the chief mentioned, it's got to stop, and you got to go home.
Two more questions.
If this situation is not sustainable, as you said a few minutes ago, where do you go from here? What options do you as mayor have from this point forward?
Yeah. So just yesterday or the day before, I'm losing track of the days here, Minneapolis, along with St. Paul and the Attorney General's office at the state, filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit outlined the duress that our city is presently experiencing and how making people safe in our city is made all the more difficult based on the presence of ICE. We are hopeful that we will succeed ultimately in that lawsuit. Of course, my concern is that yet another shooting will take place. Yet another person will be injured or killed. This is not a new concern. The chief and I have been laying this concern out for well over a month at this point. This is not sustainable. Our officers, they are working tirelessly. Again, we have about 600 officers. There's about 3,000 ICE agents and Border Control. We need our officers responding to the basic day-to-day 911 calls. We don't have the capacity to both deal with that and all of this conduct that we're seeing from ICE on the daily basis. You know, earlier today and yesterday, I was out on a couple of major commercial corridors in our city. People are scared. You know, there's basic rights that you should have to be able to live safely in your neighborhood, to be able to go downstairs and head to the cafe or the flower shop. The people that would normally keep up these shops, American citizens, by the way, many of them, are terrified because American citizens are getting picked up off the street by people in masks. That's not the way things should be conducted in any city in America. That's not who we are. That's not America. So I'm calling for peace. Everybody has a role in achieving that peace. And we're going to try to do everything that we can to keep it. Yes, our office, yes, is in touch with the governor's office, as we've been for the last week here. He has been an excellent partner in both ensuring that we have additional resources through the Minnesota State Patrol, through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and that work will be done in partnership. Thanks, everybody.
We'll have more information tomorrow that we'll put out. Thank you.
So Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, Police Chief Brian O'Hara having a late night press conference talking about the latest shooting by a federal officer of a man who we believe, or who DHS is calling a Venezuelan national, earlier this evening about 7 o'clock. The chief made it really clear. He said, you need to leave immediately. He said this is an unlawful assembly and it is well past the line. Mayor Frey had a little softer take, asking people to be peaceful and saying, do not take the bait. They do tell us that MPD, even though they are stretched thin, are on the scene, along with state troopers and Hennepin County officials, but they want people to leave because of their behavior and the potential for violence at 24th and Lindale. We want to take you there now. Ashley, I know when people protest, they don't look at their phone. I don't know if any of this is going down on X or Instagram. The O'Hara's plea to their order to get out of there and Frey's plea to leave. But have things calmed down at all?
Well, what I can tell here is that the crowd is a lot more fragmented than we have seen. So there are still smaller groups of people who are out here, but it's not like what we saw when we first got on the ground here. So you can see that traffic is actually moving through this intersection. At one point, this intersection was totally taken over by people. Now that has seemed to, really disperse in some ways, but occasionally we do still see a firework go off. And you did hear in that press conference, I believe it was Police Chief O'Hara talking about protesters aiming those fireworks at law enforcement in some cases. So we continue to see at times those fireworks go off. I did see some officers come by at, I believe it said HSI on their chest when they came by, and they were telling people to move. So we have seen this group change in the past 30 minutes or so, but there are definitely still people out here. And again, we heard the police chief saying this is way past the line and they are asking people to disperse. So we'll continue to tell you what we see and hear out here tonight. Frank?
I mean, the chief just called it unlawful, talking about the fireworks and pieces of rock and snowballs and all that kind of thing. I guess it's encouraging that maybe it's dissipated a little bit, but when I, look at the live shot that you and Tom provided, there's a lot of people there still.
There are definitely still groups here. There's people, standing on street corners, and this investigation spanned, at least 2 blocks from where I could see, and so there were people on all sides of this investigation, on the sides of all these areas that were taped off, and now that tape is starting to come down, and so maybe that's giving us a little bit better picture of just how many people were in this area trying to see what was going on, or protesting or clashing with law enforcement.
Sure. Minneapolis, the last number I saw for them in terms of MPD officers was 662, which is small, not what we should be, not what we're legally required to be at for capacity. And Mayor Frey said we have no police capacity to try to solve our own crimes and then also respond to these kind of incidents. I bring that up and preface it because I'm wondering if you see that many MPD officers there, or if this is more of a Hennepin County State Patrol ICE operation tonight.
Yeah, not many. I think myself, I've seen maybe 2 MPD squad cars at different times over the 3+ hours that we've been out here. So again, mostly what I've seen have been federal agents. Again, I saw just now what appeared to be HSI, Homeland Security investigations coming by as well. And then we've seen State Patrol. So very few MPD members from what I could see here at 24th and Lindale.
Yeah, I think part of the issue too is not just personnel, overtime, someone just trying to get some sleep and do their job, but I know it's cost. The mayor said earlier this week that between last Thursday and Sunday, that's just 4 days, they racked up $2 million in overtime in 2 days. So I don't know if it's an intentional thing to try to keep Minneapolis officers out of there, or maybe there's just not enough to go around.
I'm not sure. I mean, I was out at the site where the shooting happened 1 week ago now, 34th in Portland, over the past couple of days, and they had MPD officers stationed there while we were there. Again, one of the lanes was still blocked off for people coming up to, lay flowers and such things. But I was talking to an officer out there who said he hadn't had time off in over 24 hours or so. So he was going beyond 24 hours stationed at this vigil. So not sure if that was, just the specific situation for him and his partner, or if that was what was happening throughout the entire department.
Sure, I get the sense it might not be unique, though, especially if you're talking about a massive overtime bill like that. Ashley, before we cut you loose, is there anything else that you should share with us that I might not have asked you or that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I would just say that we're continuing to see people here in the middle of this intersection. I'm going to give you a second to look. I believe Ray is going to zoom in here for you. So again, it's traffic slow going here because there continue to be folks in the area, even though it has fragmented here in just the last little bit. You might be able to hear those sirens. We've heard sirens throughout the night. It's hard to know what law enforcement vehicle that's associated with. But again, we still have folks out here at 24th and Lyndale, just in a different form than we had seen when we originally showed up.